up. Everybody line up. We're about to race. Everybody line up. Shoulder to shoulder. Take off your backpacks. Basketball, line up. We're about to race. Hey, we are racing for a $100 bill. The winner of this race will take this. It's a $100 bill. Before I say go, I'm going to make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. If those statements don't apply to you, I want you to stay right where you're at. Take 2 steps forward if both of your parents are still married. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up with a father figure in the home. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a private education. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a free tutor growing up. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to help mom or dad with the bills. Take 2 steps forward if it wasn't because of your athletic ability, you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. I want you guys up here in the front just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I have said has nothing to do with what you've done. We all know these people up here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We would be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the reality is we have. Now, there's no excuse. They still got to run their race. You still got to run your race. But whoever wins this $100, I think it'd be extremely foolish of you not to utilize that and learn more about somebody else's story. Because the reality is, if this was a fair race and everybody was back on that line, I guarantee you some of these black dudes would smoke all of you. And it's only because you have this big of a head start that you're possibly going to win this race called life. That is a picture of life, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing you've done has put you in the lead that you're in right now. When I say go, on your mark, get set, go! If you didn't learn anything from this activity, you're a fool.
But I was there for a while, and then I got a call from someone in Herman Miller about wanting to open up a minority dealership in Chicago. And they spoke with me about coming over and starting with them. We did it for a while. But we're going to have a conversation tonight about feeling comfortable in places when you are of diversity. And sometimes some things just don't feel right. And when they're not feeling right, sometimes it sets you up for the next blessing, the next step. And Knoll ended up calling me, and they spoke to me. And there's a young lady over here, Jennifer Simmons, who spoke with me about wanting to come and be a part of her team. And she and I had some real hard conversations about what my goals were, my expectations, and how I saw the vision in the marketplace. Now, I mentioned Jennifer for a reason, because Jennifer and I are not alike. But she understood me as a professional I was in the industry. There's another couple sitting over here, Larry and Cindy Davis. They own a Knoll dealership down in Springfield. A good friend recommended me to them. And I actually went down and I spoke with them. I did a glass. That's a change then, John. You're almost done with your 2 minutes. And I spoke with them. We had that old saying in the room that said, the pastor says on Sunday, just give me a few more minutes, you know it's going to be another 30. Not going to be like that with me. But they were instrumental, folks, in also talking to me about remaining in the business and becoming a Knoll dealer. And they talked to me, they educated me on their business. And by golly, here I am, almost a year and a half later. And I will say this, it feels good here. And there is a commitment that deals with diversity, not only in the workplace, in the industry, as well as in their corporate office. And we will talk a lot about that tonight. Okay. Understanding again what the challenges are in this industry and how sometimes the uncomfortableness that deals with that we deal with as owners, employees, professionals, what we have to go through. And we're going to ask everyone to be interactive with us. And with that being said, somebody get the glass so I can turn this over. I am John Johnson. Nice to meet you. Nice and glad that you all came. And folks, let's just have conversation tonight.
I want to say first to the honoree and to the panel and to everybody that has come out to be included in this and to be a part of this. I'm Brian Ross, owner-operator of Ross Management and Consulting LLC, pretty much a property management, full-service property management company in the real estate world. I've been in that business for about 23 years now. And I started out in the world of programming and computers. I think a lot of people have started out in that because that's what they tell you is the wave of it. But I found myself in that world because I care about people. And to make someone's life comfortable after they're done with their day is my expertise. And I've seen a lot of different trials in that world. I've seen a lot of great ups and some disparities. And I'm hoping to be able to clear some understandings up and to be able to interact and talk about what I experienced on that side of things. When the common normal people or the above average or the below or impoverished people go home, I get to see them. I get to see them in all aspects. So I look forward to talking about that. Thank you.
I'm now going to have Michael Davis of Shive-Hattery.
Thank you. Great to be here, honoring John, well deserved. I just want to say that looking at that powerful video, I would have been one of the kids that never left the starting line because all of those things that they talked about, that was me. And now I am a principal at a 400-person firm, architectural firm. And miracles do happen. So a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance, a lot of help, that we can all do it. Short and sweet.
And now we have Roman Simmons, who actually also happens to be a relative of mine, by 2 years older, my big brother, who's been with Knoll for 13 years. Roman.
Yeah, so I would have probably been somewhere in the middle there. Both my parents are right here, which is awesome. I had a lot of my goals, desires, dreams, aspirations really fostered by my parents because they were so supportive of just about any endeavor that I had. So for me to be sitting here, knowing that I have friends that are in a cemetery, you know, that were probably more talented than I was. And it's sad to say. So yeah, it's just one of those things where being able to be nurtured and fostered and helped throughout your life gives you a certain amount of confidence to just go out and try. Because being able to go out and try, one of two things are going to happen. You're going to succeed or you're going to fail. I had a lot of failure. I lost a house in hurricanes, 3 hurricanes in 22 days in Florida. I went from having everything to having nothing. I worked for Disney, I was an animator for Disney, or I worked in the art department at Disney, and I lost everything. Came back to my parents' house, lived with my parents at the age of 23, and I'm like, this is terrible. And I also, within 3 months, I just looked at my parents in the eye and I said, hey, so I'm gonna move to California. You have a plan? Nope. I got a friend that has a couch, and that's my plan. You have a job? Nope. Okay, go. Because I knew that regardless of whatever I decided to do, I had support. And that sort of life, security blanket is so empowering for decision making. To know that you're just going to be supported in whatever you decide to do, that I'm here to give that to some kid somewhere, you know, whether it be on the south side, whether it be in some, you know, borough in New York, or whether it be somewhere in Crenshaw, to give some kid to know that, like, you have support from someone who will support your decisions, as long as they're good decisions, to get you through life. Because those are the types of supports that help you make decisions that are on the right path and get you to maybe be here one day and get other kids to get to that same path. So that's who I am and where I am.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right, so one of the first questions I have for our panelists is if you guys can describe any stereotypes or struggles you've experienced in the industry that you're respectively in, and how did you prevail or learn through those moments? And I'm going to start that off with our honoree, John.
That's an interesting and very funny question. It takes me back to my hire at CNA Insurance Company. And when I joined the firm, I joined there as a facility coordinator. And it was a young gentleman, I think he had just graduated from architectural school. And we just happened to pass in the office, and we were having a conversation about architecture and buildings. And I mentioned something about Frank Lloyd Wright. And he looked at me with this amazing look. And he said, how do you know about Frank Lloyd Wright? And I looked and I said, you know, the apple didn't fall far from that tree. So I need to just tell you that, listen, I'm just as educated as you are. And just because we're a little different here doesn't mean that I'm not well-read and that I don't understand who is who in this industry. And I think that is a perfect example of stereotypes. You see, the expectation was that because of who I was. It didn't matter that CNA had hired me, you know, and if they saw that I was well proven enough to work for them. It was, how do you know about Frank Lloyd Wright? So that's a perfect example, I think, of the stereotypes that we deal with in this industry, because there are not a lot of minorities, to be honest with you, when you walk into the major architectural firms. And I'm sure many of you who are working for architecture firms, etc., sometimes you feel kind of lonely because you are stereotyped. Yeah. And there's just not that many people who look like you, and you have to face those challenges every day. Okay. Constantly proving yourself.
Any of the other panelists can feel free to answer that.
Yeah, and I'm going to preface my response with a little history. I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. That would be my BFF. And she can attest to the fact that Indianapolis was, and to a certain extent still is, very segregated. It's very black and white. And growing up, I would go to the grocery store with my mother, and I would see like the home magazines at the end of the cashier station. And while she was putting the groceries on the belt, which I should have been helping her with, I was busy thumbing through the house magazines. And I would always look at these great interiors of houses. And I'd see like Saarinen table, I'll see a Corbu table or a chair or something. And I always wondered, who does that? Because that's not anything that we as a culture really had been educated on. And I worked on trying to find out who did that. Long story short, I go to school and it's just me and a room full of young ladies. And there was one other guy, and he was trying to do a double major in architecture and interiors. So I thought, why not? I'm going to try that too. So I started out as a double major in architecture and interiors, but after a year, thought that was nuts because I was spending all my time in the studio. So long story short, I stuck with interior design, and when I graduated and started going out to try and find a job, I would go in, I'd get an interview, and I'd walk in, and immediately you could see from the receptionist to the person that I was supposed to talk to look at me and go, you're here for an interior design job? Yes, I am. Here I am, a 6-foot, straight, heterosexual, male, black. So I didn't fit any of the stereotypes. So and that's something that over the years I have seen a little less of, and I think it's more accepted these days, but still it was quite a shock I graduated college in 1982, and I was definitely an anomaly.
So when you were all in school, were there any instructors of color in your classrooms? And if not, what do you think is the importance of seeing representation just from the educational standpoint? Brian, if you could start that.
When you think about education, you think about a person who is supposed to drive your future. They're supposed to structure who you inspire to be, and think about, and have you, and promote you to think about what you should be doing to get where you want to go. Well, not everybody wants you to do that. Everybody, there's a thing in real estate called steering that you shouldn't be doing. But that's what happens in life, period. They steer you based on your background, based on your ethnicity, and where they think you should go. And if you don't have the drive to steer yourself above that, you will drive right into some of those pitfalls. And that's what a lot of our communities, that's why they look the way they look now, because they were driven into areas where they didn't fit. And those are people, that have done that. I was certainly one of those folks. In high school, I was told that you ain't gonna be nothing looking at these grades. But I didn't have the tutors at home. I didn't have the time. I had time limits to get home and to get things done. I couldn't stay out of school and study and a lot of things. I had to ask my younger sister when I was in high school to help me out with some things. I had to find a smart girlfriend at the time that could help me out with some of those things. But none of the teachers that I looked at were pushing me in the direction that I need to go. And so to say it's not a sad story, but it empowered me to just want to be me. I'll let it go. One of the things I saw in high school, they put you on a 5-year plan if you don't measure up. I don't know if they do that now, but back then they did. And I saw my name on that 5-year plan. I said, oh, blank no. I'm not doing that. And so I knew then I had to start pushing myself because none of those folks were pushing me. In college, nobody pushed me. I had to push myself.
Yeah, if I can jump in here. When I was in school, I was always that kid that was, he's got potential, but. And my but was always, he doesn't stop drawing. He's always distracted. He's always, this. And yeah, like there was a rule in my house, like if you came home with less than a B, we're gonna have issues. We're gonna have issues. One time I came home with less than a B, I personally decided to try to change that to bigger than that. That didn't go over so well in my house. I was found out, things happen. But from that point on, it was just I just had a natural ability to just learn and go, and that was it. In doing that, I had several teachers who saw that potential, pushed it, challenged it. I had other teachers that weren't so happy that a black kid was the smartest kid in their class, and weren't shy about showing that, which is unfortunate. So I went to high school in LaGrange, which is 13-ish miles straight west of here. 98% white. My graduating class was 1,300. There were 12 black kids. And I don't even know if my parents know this. I was the only black male in AP classes, and there were times I had notes in my locker that said, with the hard ER or the A, the N-word, we don't want you here. Because they didn't want me in those classes. Because it was just uncomfortable as a whole to that, which, and looking back, it's like, yeah, that was just high school, those kids are just blackheads or whatever. No, but just as a whole, there was just a general fear and threatened feeling of like, this kid is going to come and do things differently or take my job or whatever that inherent fear was. That to me, it was just like, I'm just trying to get through this because I'm in a school where I'm literally a drop of chocolate in a bowl. That's where I am. And so relating it to the industry, I didn't know anything about the design industry as far as it being interior design or furniture design until I started working for Knoll in 2007. And it wasn't until I started to see the similarities between the animation that I loved and the graphic design that I loved, that all white space is white space. It's just what you're filling it with, right? It's whether I'm filling with text or whether I'm filling with furniture. It's still white space that just needs to be filled. That once I realized that, okay, this is how these dots connect. And Knoll now was a vehicle that I could use to further my education. Knoll, before I moved to Michigan and had 2 children, which I love dearly, Knoll was paying for my education to go. I was going to school at the School of Art Institute in Chicago, and my younger sister will tell you, I was taking 3 classes at a time which she told me not to, because I had not been in school for so long. And I decided to go right back into school. And if you've ever been drawing at 2 a.m. trying to draw floor plans accurate to within 1/8 of an inch, you understand. You understand that, like, at some point you're just like. Right? So, even at the School Nurse Institute of Chicago, which is a phenomenal school, and this is only 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I still, from the time I left high school till even then, I have not had one African American teacher, not one. And in my school career, I might have had 2, if I'm thinking right, total. None of which were arts teachers, none of which were design teachers. So, I mean, that may open up a whole other can of worms to how that whole industry works. But who knows what that does to a kid to not understand it? Like, these are things that you can do in this industry if you just have the knowledge and know about them, right? If you don't, my whole philosophy around diversity and understanding and getting in front of kids is I will never ever fault kids that don't know what they don't know, because I can't blame them. I will always fault people like myself, or like Michael, like John, that have the knowledge and don't share it. Right? So it's on us to take it to these kids, to let them understand that, like, if you had told me at 6, even though I knew what I wanted to do at 6, I wanted to be a Disney animator. If you had told me at then, they're like, hey, you're drawing pictures of tables and designing furniture, chairs, and cool stuff like that. That sounds like fun. You get to draw chairs all day? Cool. How do I do it? Come back in high school. Hey, this is what you can do now. If you don't like designing chairs, you can space plan and design and understand what it is to tailor make a space behind a company's brand and understand what this company, how they want to perceive themselves and attract and retain talent behind the way that they're designing their whole entire floor plan. Okay, that sounds cool. Like, how do I do that? Or now to this level to where you're doing, hey, you can play in VR. You can have a headset on, sit at home in pajama pants and with dog hair and your kid yelling inside, which is what I do, and have a headset on and be giving virtual reality tours to clients that are clear across the country or across the world. I'm playing in video games, designing stuff, and having fun doing it. These kids don't know that this career exists. They don't know that these are the things that you can do that all started with you drawing somewhere or behind a teacher that could have told them, hey, this is where you can go to. So it's paramount that we get this information out to these kids so they understand that these are the type of things that you can do.
Very nicely said in 2 or 3 minutes, Robert. Thank
Does that mean that I can't answer for it tonight?
you. Please answer the question. And then I'm just going to preface the next one with, once you're done, what everyone's currently doing to help encourage and educate the next generation. After you answer.
There's just a slight difference in age here between all of us. The question was, when you're back in school, did you have people in the classroom, teachers, etc., who looked like you? And when I grew up, absolutely, I had strong female as well as male teachers. And back in that day, their focus was to make sure that we learned, because they knew what we were going to be going into once we graduated out of school. And I will never forget this, and I think about CPS now. And my son and I have been at CPS. We mentioned students at CPS. And back in that day, if we played around, didn't turn in assignments, and they say, listen, I'm going to reach out to your parents. They were very serious. Okay. You or your parents will be coming up to school the next day even without you knowing. Okay. And they want to understand why you weren't turning in your homework assignments. So there was a commitment from the kids back, from the teachers back then in the CPS school system to make sure that we learned it. What is disheartening to me now is that when we look at our school system, I don't see the black males there as instructors. I don't know why that change has happened. I don't know if it's a financial thing. We just can't draw the males back into the school system to teach. I think there is a tremendous weight that is put on the females to teach. And they're not only having to teach and instruct, but they're dealing with so many other home issues that the kids bring there, okay? And the kids sometimes just don't have hope. And that's what I believe that we, number one, as males, we need to find our way back. And we need to get involved. And for industries like this, there are a lot of young kids, black and brown, that are creative as I don't know what. And they can draw, they can see things visually. You've got architects with the inspiration inside of them, but you don't have anyone to bring it out. And so, again, as I came up, it was a little different for me, and I'm sure some of us in my age range, you understand that, what I'm saying. But there's a system out there that we need to reach back into and be a part of the solution. We really need to be a part of that solution, and especially if we're going to make changes in this industry that we are members of. Okay? Because if we don't go back and get them and train them from a young age up, not only will they be on that 5-year plan, I know what you're talking about, but they also have something called a penal code, where they actually run studies on our young black boys. And they say if they're not performing at this age, at this level, by this, they're going to be locked up at this point in time in their life. They've already got a program. That's why the penal system is so profitable, because they do these studies and they base it on where we know the black and brown kids are going to be at some point in time. Okay? So it's a real serious matter. We need to address it. We need to reach back, and again, especially in this industry, we need to find a way to get in there and start bringing out the creativity in the young students.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I want to just piggyback one key point on what Mr. Johnson was talking about is the penal system. You know that they do budgets based on what they expect of communities to come in. You know the police department does budgets based on manpower of who and what they should be attacking, or not so much attacking, but patrolling in areas. So if they're not meeting these certain budget quotas, you got owners in certain states that own prison systems, and they get on the politics. What are y'all doing? I'm losing money. I need y'all to beef up the stop and frisk. I need you to beef up this and that. But aside from that, I want to ask everybody a question. How many children, or what child, or what person have you came in encounter with and saw them doing something that they shouldn't have been doing and never said anything to them? Just kind of walked past them. Heard a young child cursing to no end, you know they will do that, and you never corrected them, never said, hey, what are you doing? You're better than that. Well, let me just say this. I get involved with a lot of young folks. I'm a diehard football person. If you cut me, I'm going to bleed football blood. And a lot of people that know me know during football season on Sundays, don't call me. If you ain't coming to join, don't call me. I'm a football coach, and I've done that for 10 years. And so a youth football coach at that, 13 and 14-year-olds, and you know they are very impressionable at that point. That is the point, and even younger, but at that point they're deciding who they are. Am I man enough to go forward, or am I baby enough to lean back on my parents, or lean back on those who are calling me? At that point they're deciding their manhood. There was a kid whose foot was a 13 and a half. And I'm like, geez, whatever you're eating, you need to stop. But is the fact that he's in his manhood now. I can't talk to you as a young child. I mean, at this point, you know, some of the kids are more advanced than we are on a lot of things. So I'm saying that to say, and to answer the question, it's not just football that I teach them, but it's manhood. It's standing up and being accountable. It's not just going out there running the play, it's that you execute that play to the best of your ability. And if you fail, are you going to come back and do it again? And that's what I empower them. And this goes through their life. When they go home and deal with their parents, when they go home and deal with their teachers, and go home and deal with themselves at the end of the day. Did they put their best foot forward? It is up to me to empower them. I now don't walk past a child. If I see something going on, I have a point of saying something. Even if they don't listen, I jog their memory. Hey, are you supposed to be doing that? And so people say, well, mind your business, that's my child. Well, you know what? Your child got a future too.
So to answer Rachel's question, what are you doing to help the youth? I flat out cold call high schools and I say, hey, here's who I am, here's what I do. I would love to speak to your children. I would love to get in front of them in some way, shape, or form, because I know that my career is kind of a niche. It's different, it's out there, it's not something they may have heard of or understand or know about, but it's on me to get what I do out there for them to understand that, like, this is something you can do. That you can sit and you can play around on a computer all day and just literally play make-em-ups on a computer and just design stuff. I love being given a project where it's like, okay, here's X, here's Y, you figure out A through Z. And that's what I'm given on a daily basis. And I want to get that to these kids to understand that you can have something like this. So to answer your question, I just go out and I'll cold call high schools and do that. And I've fortunately, through the activism of going out and doing that, I've yet to be turned down. I've gone to probably 10 different high schools in Michigan now, since that's where I live. I'm working on going back to my old high school, but it's just making yourself available to be heard by those students, by those kids, that will always and every single time open up the pathway to conversations that to a career they might not have known they could have had without knowing about this opportunity. So that's why it's inherent on me to bring what I have to the table for them to see.
So Michael, who was your mentor and why?
Well, I would first say my mentor was probably my mother, because anything that I wanted to do, she would support me. And in Indianapolis, there was only one African-American architect that was practicing at the time when I was growing up. That was Walter Blackburn. He had a architecture firm. He died a few years back, but he was really the sole practitioner in Indianapolis as a person of color. But there have been others during my career that I would say have been inspirational to me, and ironically, they've been people that live outside of the country or grew up outside of the country and came to work in Chicago and in Indianapolis. And one is Portuguese, another is Japanese, and another is Russian. And they have helped me over the years, early on in my career, and probably because I just didn't see folks like myself in the industry or early in my educational system. None of my teachers were African American in the design profession. In grade school, high school, college. So yeah, it was not until I got out of school that I found someone that I would quote unquote call a mentor or was inspirational to me.
I just wanted to open up. Are there any questions that I said in the beginning? The audience can feel free to ask questions at any time.
I want to answer. I want to answer that from a standpoint of I'm at the table before the architects and designers get there, and when we talk about financing communities, you know, you hear a lot of talk about TIF money and these things that are allocated to the communities and all of that. I have to take up for the architects and the construction folks, because they don't get to see that part. They get to see the budget and they get to see a set of instructions of how to get there. But what I get to see is I get to see a table of people who don't look like me determining what happens to a bunch of people that do look like me, and determining what conditions they should live in, if they should at all. If it doesn't look profitable for them, then they don't want to move forward. And so when we talk about the homeless population, I've been at the table where some of that homeless population could have been solved through monies and funds that come in, but it wasn't profitable for the investor. It wasn't a sweet deal enough to build that SRO home or to build that homeless facility, because market rents were better. We were gonna go that route. And I had to sit there and look at it, because I had no power in that. It wasn't my money. And I didn't control the political money that came in. So from that standpoint, I've seen the homeless population, and those are, that affordable housing could have been built passed over. And what they would do, they'll make you think that, oh, you know what, we're really pushing affordable housing. That's another story. I won't even drag on with it unless, you know, I got time, but that is one of the things that I saw at the table.
There is another question over here.
Hi everybody, my name is Jessica Newman. I'm a diversity and inclusion specialist at K&L Gates. So Rachel, I just want to give you a round of applause and take a moment to love on you for having this courageous dialogue. Also, I'm very curious as we talk about architecture and space, and we talk about culture in space. So when I look at CPS schools, has anybody ever been at CPS on the South Side? Any school on the South Side? So we see some disparity there in who has perception of what CPS schools are. To me, what CPS schools look like are prison cells, prison blocks. So when I think about our Black kids in those confined spaces, we don't breathe innovation every day. We don't see that reimagination happening on the day-to-day. So my question is for you, because there is an obligation, and I think we know that as Black individuals that there is an obligation, but if you feel comfortable, what can you give to our allies, some tips on what it means to be in this space and how we can work together? Because the reimagining has to happen for everybody, not just for our kids. And when we are in those spaces, thinking about what this space looks like and how we elevate the minds of our students, when they see things around them, what tips will you give our allies?
So I had the fortunate opportunity to work on a project that was kind of geared towards, it wasn't specifically CPS, but it was a Illinois Board of Education program. And one of the things that I even called out in the spaces that I was seeing developed as far as the typicals being developed and the way the design was going was just how generic and bland it was, right? Your environment directly affects your mood, your mindset, your willingness to want to go in to be in that space. And I literally took it upon myself to just ignore all the direction that was given to just make this space, because I knew the type of kids that were going to be going into this space, I knew what kind of kids those were. But they needed to see a space that would inspire them, that would be someplace that they would want to go to, that wasn't manila yellow and this bland blue, and like we all know what those colors look like, that terrible pinkish laminate. Like, we all know what they look like, right? But all it takes is, it could have just been something as simple as a can of paint that was a different color to just change a whole mindset of how these kids approach going into that classroom. Right? It's taking that same approach that they give to Hinsdale, that they give to Naperville, that they give to any of these other communities that are in the area. They give them that extra 5 minutes, which in our work time is probably really 2 or 3 days worth of workspace planning and engineering and design, to make that space more comforting and more welcoming as a person that's going to be in it 3 to 4 hours a day. If we did that for, the CPS schools, what kind of difference does that make? And that's the type of thing that I think that we are absolutely obligated to, when we have those opportunities, to say, hey, why aren't we giving this same sort of attention to detail and understanding of color theory and all of these things that are design driven to a space simply because it's on the west side? Like, why aren't we? They still have the same obligation to give them the same mental stability in that workspace that we give these kids, and the same that I had when I was on the Grange. Like I went to my high school that I went to, it was a campus. It was gorgeous. Like I used to go out and sit on a blanket and do my homework, and it was stupid, right? Like, stupid, right? But that's my point, is that we should be giving these kids the same opportunity, the visual stimulation that we give everyone else.
And I'll add that a lot of the challenges with regard to why don't we give the same attention to the schools in underserved areas is mainly outside of our purview in terms of funding, because it takes money to get the facilities up to not only just aesthetic level that's equal to others, but just to get them to be well heated, fresh water, things like that. And that's more of a political thing that we don't need to get into. But just to also answer your question, I personally don't work on K through 12 or K through high school projects, but I belong to an organization called the 1%, and it volunteers. We volunteer 1% of our own personal time to help facilities.
What's something that someone who doesn't look like you, doing their jobs every day to make a better impact? Because a lot of what I sometimes see is that you can only reach those who you know. And when Norman was talking about cold calling, that doesn't seem to necessarily be the culture that I see in Knoll. A lot of it is much more based on relationship building. So what can you do outside of your comfort zone if I'm a Caucasian, if I'm Mexican, if I'm anything that's not African American, to try to reach African Americans?
Is that a question for us or for the audience?
It's in our comfort zone to meet with John, to be honest with you. And hey, John, how did it go when we got together and started talking to each other?
Larry, I'm glad that you mentioned.
Can you repeat that, Larry?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, a person that we've worked with in the industry for how long? 20 years probably. Came with us and said, "That's a great guy. You need to meet him." And we're a small dealership. We're not a large dealership. dealership like in Chicago. We're a smaller dealership. And, you know, we have no diversity in our dealership. We all look the same. And, you know, this guy came in and said, yeah, this guy looks unique. We said, yeah, great, bring him in. And we met John. So, you know, here's what we did. Okay, John, you tell him what we did together as a group. Absolutely. You know, because we all are benefiting from this.
Yes, we
It's
are.
a blessing.
Yeah. I will, let me say this. When I met with Larry and Cindy and your team, they were very open. When I walked in the office, I didn't feel any preconceived notions about John Johnson, who he is, what he looks like, coming in to sit and talk with me. And we began to have our conversation about what we saw in the marketplace. We talked about vision. We talked about what my needs were. We talked about what they could do for me. And truthfully, right from that very first meeting, we had actually crafted an understanding about how we were going to work together. Okay. It started from a conversation.
That's all it was, John.
And I think that the
Couple
answer to
people
the
talking.
question, that's right. We have to have conversations. We have to get people together who are willing to say, listen, I want to be involved in having some impact on, be it the school system, neighborhood community groups, homeless needs, etc. People have to come together and say, listen, let's form a group and let's see how we can attack this. Because I would bet you in this room, everybody has resources, contacts, who they can make calls to and say, listen, I'm a part of this group, and here's what we're looking to do. We're really trying to put together the whole statement and understand what we can do, how we can do it, and reach out, and those resources become available to you.
What we did isn't special. What we did is not a miracle. And we're nobody special for what we did.
It was a conversation.
It was an opportunity for everybody.
Yes.
And in the long run of this, there'll be a lot of profitability, but a lot of blessing for everybody. It's not always about the money you make, guys. It's about the relationships you develop with other human beings who are going to help you through life.
Absolutely.
It isn't dependent on age. Cindy and I are 66 years old, so we're not young. We've been in the business forever. So, you know, you're denying yourself the benefit of learning and expanding if you don't reach out to other people who don't think or look like you.
Absolutely.
We have a comment on this side.
I'm Trish Gordon. I'm working with JLL in Chicago. I just had a comment. Earlier today, I was speaking with Mr. Prince, who I know Mr. Justin we worked with at CNN. But he mentioned to me that the benefit we bring as African Americans or people in general is our own perspective. And that's our value. I thought that was fantastic. So I said, I'm going to steal it. I'll give you credit this time, Mr. Prince. Next time it's mine. But on that note, in order for those relationships to be built, we have to all be willing to open up and sit down and have that conversation. That's everybody, of any race, of any culture, of any ability or disability. We have to sit down and know that it's hard to hate someone when you're close up to them. You can do it, you can tweet it, you can Instagram it, you can Facebook it and write all kinds of garbage. But when you call someone and talk to them, or when you're having a conversation close up, you can't hate them. There are plenty of people who have been KKK members who have become friends with an African American, also they've given up KKK. That's because they got close. So that means you have to be willing to open up to have those conversations.
So of course I'm Joshua Johnson, John Johnson's son. I want you to kind of speak on the CPS a little bit more, because what we've done in the past has been, I think, extraordinary as far as like tapping into the community, changing the vision of the teachers and the principals, and kind of I think kind of missed the opportunity to kind of speak on that, what we done for CPS. So I want you to kind of explain that a little bit more.
What we did for CPS, we were selling technology to the schools, and we used to do that. We used to sell interactive technology to Chicago public schools. And when we went in, and especially for Josh, we found that the engagement was a little different. okay? One is classroom sizes were just huge, so it was very difficult to interact, and I saw the teachers' challenges. And then I thought, this technology that we're bringing in is a technology that will be able to draw in the children from a learning perspective. They need this, and then once we can center their learning around the technology and the use of the technology, then I think what you would end up doing is engaging them in a different, whole new learning kind of atmosphere. And my son was very good at this, okay? Because I've seen things in the classroom where kids would speak out against the teachers, say whatever they felt they wanted to say. And see, I'm from a generation where I'll walk in and say, listen, I'm very cool with you out here. We're going out the door. Yeah, and I'm gonna say what I got to say. But today, in this world, you get in trouble for doing that. My son understood how to engage those young kids in conversations because a lot of times they were hurting. They were hurting from something. Something happened at home. Something happened maybe with the students when they got to school, bullying, whatever the case may be. And he used to tell me about conversations he had with the young kids. And he would say, you know, Dad, that's not a bad kid. He told me that this was going on in his life. He said, I opened up and I listened. Yeah. And he said, it's sad, but I want to stay engaged here. Okay. And the teachers would love to have him come back. Matter of fact, we kept getting repeat calls for him to come back because I think he was making it easier for them to teach. But we engaged with them at that time, and a number of different principals actually reached out to me and said, listen, I really want to bring your son aboard to be a teacher. You know, so those kinds of interactions are what we did at CPS.
And one,
and to the point of like what generally that we can do, make yourself available, right? Like your time is the most important thing you can give to someone else, especially as a youth. And that's the one thing that I found, like my dad was my coach throughout high school and grade school in basketball, and like I never had the confidence to do a lot of things on a basketball court, but only because he would tell me I could, I was able to do a lot of things. To your point with the CPS schools, if you just, when you take the time to give a kid, even if it's a minute of just intent listening and responding, that kid, chances are, will remember that encounter for the rest of their lives. Because you took the time to listen to what they had to say, didn't just give them some canned response, and you responded genuinely. My daughter knows when I'm full of crap. She's only 6. She knows when I'm like, I don't have any more fries. There's fries in my bag. She knows there's fries in my bag. But again, it's being genuine and honest with a kid in that moment and giving your time that will always make the difference, and making yourself available to do so and giving yourself the opportunity to get in front of these kids to do so time and time and time again. And that's why, to my point, I don't know what the span of what all of you do, but cold call a high school and say, hey, this is what I do. This is how I would love to speak to a kid. That's all I know. All I know is what I've done. And what I've done has been fun in my life, and I'm gonna share it with some kids. That's all I know, and when I get in front of a room full of 30 kids who are rambunctious or whatever, the second I turn on my presentation and I show them some drawings I did for Disney, everything stops. They're like, what? You did that? And it's full attention, and at the end of that, they're like, how can I do that? Just give your time. That's what you can do. That's your niche to get into all of these kids' lives time and time and time again.
When you look at CPS schools, I am a product of CPS schools. I went to Hearst Elementary, then I went to Curie, go Condors anyway. Yeah, I mean, when you're looked on, at one point when you fill out an application, when they're not asking for degrees and stuff, I'm going back some time, and they see that you went to a certain school, you were passed over because you didn't go to the esteemed, those prestige schools. And I had to explain a lot of times in interviews why I went to the school I went to, and why am I so different than the next person. So yeah, I agree. You can come out of it. You can come out of it and make it what you want, but you have to instill and empower those children to do so. And again, to those points, if you don't change the environment that they're looking at, and they're looking at these center block walls, and they're not looking at the soft tone walls, you're conditioning them for what they should be, instead of erasing that blurred line of what they can be.
I have a question. And I'll just use this word, it's not to be offensive to anyone, okay? Our white counterparts here in the audience, okay? You've had a chance to hear us speak this evening. And it's not blinding to the fact that our industry is probably 99.9 whatever percent all white, okay? It's not blinding to us that there may be one African American male or female that works in your office. I would like to hear from you. Maybe not all at one time. But this is a conversation about your thoughts about the challenges that we face, not only in the industry that we work in, but we're not blind to social media. We're not blind to a president who seems to just say whatever comes out his back end, okay, about how he sees the world. I would like to hear from you about your thoughts about what can be done to be impactful, to change things that are going on in our organizations, our corporations, or to even make recommendations about how you see things now. So with that being said, I just want to open the floor up.
Well, that kind of ties in with my question, because you all have talked really well about the importance of inspiring youth. And I think that, I do diversity and inclusion work with these lovely people who are sitting around me over at Gensler. And one of the things that we talk about is how to keep people of color in the industry, because they leave the industry. And as a former educator myself, I know some of the most impactful things that you can do is spark confidence in your own talent, right? And what I don't always see our white partners doing is sparking that inspiration, that talent, going to Robo and saying, Robo, that was amazing. You're really talented at doing this. We need to give you more opportunities to do this. Because having someone get outside their sphere of influence, who is their tight circle of white dudes that look like them, especially in architecture, is hard to convince someone to do. But my mother grew up in abject poverty, right, in a broken home. And she is the first person, not only in our family, to go to college, but to get a master's degree, and then to teach in public schools for her entire career. She is very accomplished as an educator, and the reason why that was possible for her, not just because she was white, but because she had someone who told her she had a talent. And then she had other people along the way who had power, who told her that that talent was worth something and gave her a platform for it. And I think a lot of the times we get this bootstrap mentality narrative going around that you can just do anything you can do if you just work hard enough, and that's not true. Like, we watched the video, it's not true. It takes someone in power going, I'm gonna give you part of my platform. And giving you part of my platform makes my platform stronger.
It's good.
Great.
That's good.
So from a design standpoint, the Organization of Black Designers exists, and Project Osmosis exists. So those are two organizations that I've been a part of that do exactly what you're saying. They reach back, help the youth. Also, we have networking events just to get together so we know each other. And in a larger context, I was just at a meeting with the new commissioner that the mayor has hired to help development. And there are going to be a lot of new things coming. I think the mayor has really strong ideas that she's pushing forward. So just be on the lookout for some things coming down the pipe.
Cox, Maurice Cox.
Yes.
So outside of the design industry, I'm an avid golfer, and my parents did not give away such. I'm a part of the First Tee program, which teaches golf to minority youth throughout the country. I started in Crenshaw and Watts, and I was putting golf clubs in the hands of kids that had guns in their hands probably earlier that day. Let's just be honest. But these are things that it goes back to making yourself available to be a positive influence to these kids' lives. Where I live now in Michigan, in reaching out to these high schools and just cold calling them, it has turned into me joining what's called their ACE program, which is a series of people who are in the arts world. There are sculptors, there are painters, there are, just whatever that sort of art world touches, that all get together twice a year to help steer and drive the curriculum for the arts programs in the local high schools. They didn't have anyone that really touched on 3D design or virtual reality because that wasn't addressed there. And it was only because I just cold called a high school that now they have someone, and now it's like, hey, this is a career these kids can look into. The onus is on us. If you have that ability, and I understand that not everyone has the ability to teach. I get that. It's not a gift, but you have the ability to pass on knowledge. Everyone has that ability. How you do it, it might not always be the prettiest, but pass it on and make yourself available to pass it on, because otherwise it's gonna die with you, right? It'll never get to the next person. It'll never get advanced. My dad said something that our pastor passed on to him, that if your kids get into the same industry or same genre that you do, they're going to take it to another level, right? My dad was an art major. I've known how to draw since before I could walk. That's the truth. And I have always loved art. And he loves art, but he just stopped drawing. He went into the more design side of it. I still love to draw. I've taken it now to the level that I can. I'm hoping that I can pass it on to my kids. If they want to go that route, great. If they don't, that's fine. So I'll support whatever they do. But it's on me to at least give them the opportunity to know that that's out there, to know that that's available to them. And if they do decide to help them get to the next level, I don't know what those programs are that are here in Chicago. I'm gonna call and find out. If it means me driving over from Michigan to come here and do things and to make myself available to CPS schools to come in and talk, whatever that looks like, I want to make myself available to do so because the onus is on me to do so.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tom, and I'm with Crick and Sexton Architects, about a firm of about 27 people, and yes, we have one African American member in our team. But a driving experience that we've had in the recent past is working in West Inglewood with a community that 5 years ago was the second most gun violence in the city and so forth. But the point I'd like to make ties to the topic of high school, and I think we all know the change has to come faster. We've been at this for years and decades, and it's not fast enough. So what what I've sort of out of this thinking, what I've decided last year is I started running for the high school board in Riverside Brookfield High School, right next to probably LaGrange LT or whatever. And what I think we have to do is, because our generation's had a very long time at this, and we have an embarrassingly low amount of success. And my hope is on the children. And just like last weekend, we had like a strategic planning session, and all of a sudden we're looking around, and all the board members are of course white. And it occurred to me that we have, I think what your community can do is to aggressively, run for those types of positions too, so that we can then select principals who look like our children. So we have a lot of Hispanic kids in our school, and hired a Hispanic principal, and it's made a huge difference. So I think that a joint opportunity that we have, regardless of race, is to take it upon us, push our way into these organizations, and start to do it on that level.
Good. Great job.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle McClendon. I work for the Department of Construction, a general contractor, not too far from here, a couple blocks from West Loop. So I did have a question that I know that you don't have any time left, but I just wanted to put it on you guys' mind. To my Caucasian counterparts in the room, as I gathered my things to walk over here like 2 blocks away, one of my office mates who's there every night late with me, we both don't have a life. And I said, hey, come with me, a Caucasian guy, and I showed him where we were going. He says, no. I said, well, why not? You're everywhere with me. He said, well, I'm gonna be the only white guy in the room. And I said, do you know the meeting we just left? And he said, yeah. I said, I'm the only black girl in the room for every single meeting. I'm gonna be uncomfortable. I said, you don't think that I'm uncomfortable at every meeting? He's like, yeah, but you're Michelle. I'm like, hey, you're such and such. So I asked that question, and I opened that dialogue of this. How do I get my Caucasian counterparts to be more open-minded? I have to walk into every meeting open-minded. Otherwise, I don't get anywhere. So that's my part.
All of our panelists again, Roman, Michael, John, and Brian. It was very engaging. It was enlightening, hopefully to some of you. But it doesn't stop today, February 28th. We really encourage you all to continue these conversations. This will not be the last panel that we have, but we really thought it was important to do it in February. As we do wrap these things up, thank you again to all of you. We're not going to rush you out of here, but I do encourage you guys to move eagerly. So that I can have it out on Monday. Thanks.